"Are you going to hand over the keys or hand this family a scandal?" my father asked, just loud enough for everyone to hear. I smiled, silent. The party shattered like crystal on stone. They thought I would bend. They didn't know I had files, witnesses, and an assigned hardship clause. From that moment, the ambulance took me away, but justice was driving straight toward them. The siren ripped the air, a raw, mechanical scream cutting through the manicured afternoon, violating the unspoken rules of our neighborhood. This is West Ridge County, a place where distress is handled with quiet checks and silent agreements, not with sirens that wail and demand attention. Red, blue, red, blue. The lights strobed across my face, frantic and accusing. I was flat on my back, staring at the perforated ceiling of the ambulance. The rhythmic flash painted the metal fixtures. Each pulse of light was a hammer blow against my closed eyelids, a synchronized beat to the new chaotic soundtrack of my life. The vehicle rocked, turning a corner too fast, and I felt the straps dig into my chest and legs. Can you hear me?" A voice, low and insistent, cut through the wail. A man in a dark blue uniform leaned into my field of vision. His face was calm, but his eyes were urgent. "Maysam, I need to know if you can hear me. Did someone hurt you?" I tried to form a word. My tongue felt thick, a useless muscle in my mouth. I opened my lips, but only a dry, rattling gasp escaped. I swallowed, and the motion itself was agonizing. It felt like swallowing a stone, a jagged piece of granite that had been lodged in my throat for decades, the solid mass of every word I never said, every time I'd nodded, every argument I'd conceded before it began. He misinterpreted the sound. "Okay, just try to stay calm. We are on our way to Riverton Medical. You're safe now." He lifted a small light and shone it into my right eye, then my left. "Pupils are reactive. Can you tell me your name?" "Safe?" That word felt alien. Safety in my life had always been conditional. Safety meant blending in. Safety meant being useful. Safety meant anticipating needs before they were spoken. "Did you fall?" "Did you hit your head?" he pressed, his voice firm but not unkind. "I need to know what happened." I closed my eyes again, and the flashing red and blue was instantly replaced by the brilliant, sharp white of the late afternoon sun. The memory did not drift back, it slammed into me. I was back on the blue stone patio. The air smelled of expensive charcoal, roasting meat, and my mother's perfume. The sound that came after my father's question. Not the sound of the party, but the sound of the party ending. The heavy, expensive crystal glass my father was holding, he did not throw it at me. He is a man of control. He threw it down. An explosion of pure, distilled rage when I refused to answer. When I simply stood there silent, the sound of that crystal shattering on the stone was a gunshot. And then the lights, not these sirens, but the beautiful, delicate string lights my mother had woven through the pergola. The patio chandelier, she called it, in the chaos that followed the crash of the glass. As my brother Eli finally understood, as his face turned from princely expectation to contorted fury, he lunged. He did not lunge at me, he lunged for the box in my jacket pocket. Someone screamed. Someone grabbed the main support wire of the lights. Time stretched thin. I saw the brass clips ping free. One by one, I saw the cascade of tiny glowing bulbs and copper wires swing down like a dying willow branch. It was beautiful, a constellation collapsing in slow motion. The sun catching each bulb like a falling star. I remembered the thought, precise and clear, that is what my spine feels like. 1,000 points of light, all disconnecting at once. A sharp, chemical smell pulled me back to the ambulance. Chlorine, antiseptic, and underneath it, the cold, coppery tang of metal. It was the smell of the gurney. The smell of the sterile gauze someone had pressed against the side of my head. My throat was raw, scorched. Not from screaming, I never made a sound, but from the sheer, pressurized force of holding it all in. I realized I was breathing in tiny, shallow sips. It was not enough air. "Easy now," the medic said. "Try to take a deep breath. Your heart rate is high. You're in shock." Shock? I thought shock was numbness, confusion. This was not confusion. This was a terrible, humming clarity. It was the feeling of being encased in cold amber, every detail preserved, sharp and perfect. I saw every sneer, every dismissive wave of the hand, every casual act of erasure from the last 30 years. My fingers twitched against the gurney sheet. I was fighting a reflex, an instinct so deep it felt like part of my cellular structure, the urge to apologize. "I am so sorry." The words rose in my throat like bile. I am sorry for the noise. I am sorry for the siren. I am sorry for ruining Eli's 18th birthday. I am sorry for making you angry, Dad. I am sorry for embarrassing you, Mom. I am sorry. I wanted to say to this medic, I am sorry for bleeding on your equipment and taking up your time. I bit the inside of my cheek. The sharp, metallic tang of my own blood bloomed on my tongue. It was real. It was an anchor. I swallowed the apology. I forced it back down, back to that stone in my throat. I will not be sorry for this. I will not. The ambulance was slowing. The siren wound down, leaving a ringing in my ears. The doors swung open, flooding the space with the harsh, functional light of the hospital bay. "What do we have, John?" a woman's voice asked, crisp. Female, late 40s, the medic. Syncope episode following a reported domestic dispute, John recited, his voice all business, as they slid the gurney out. Patient is alert but non-verbal. Possible concussion. Minor laceration to the left temporal. Vitals unstable, tachycardia, high anxiety, the nurse asked. She had a clipboard. She was not looking at me, she was looking at the chart. Hasn't given one, John said, looking at me. A question was in his eyes. I found my voice. It cracked like a dry, rusty hinge. Aaliyah, I croaked. The nurse's pen stopped. She looked at me. Aaliyah. Can you spell that for me, honey? Aaliyah. Last name, Fox. Aaliyah Fox. She scribbled it down, then pulled a white plastic band from her pocket. She pressed an embossed label onto it and snapped it around my wrist. The plastic was stiff, the edges sharp against my skin. I twisted my hand to read the black, clinical letters, Ali Fox. It looked like someone else's name. At home, I was Leah, a soft, accommodating sound. I was sis, a role, not a person. I was she or her, or most often just an expectant pause in the air, a need waiting to be filled. But here on this bracelet, it was my full name. It was not a request, it was not a suggestion. It was a fact. It was the first time today, perhaps the first time this decade, that my name had been treated with absolute, undeniable seriousness. They were moving again. Fast. The gurney wheels hummed over the linoleum. Ceiling lights flashed overhead. Strobe, strobe, strobe. Stop. The world became a small square bay, enclosed by a pale green curtain on a metal track. The noise of the ER was a distant, racking cough. A machine beeped a steady rhythm. A calm overhead page for DR. Patel was muffled. It was quieter here. John, the medic, was still there, finalizing his report on a tablet. He looked at me, his duty done, but his gaze lingered. Aaliyah, he said, using my name. It sounded solid. I am required to ask you again. The nurse will ask you. A police officer will probably be by to ask you, we just want to help. Did someone do this to you? The curtain provided a fragile, temporary privacy. The silence in this little cubicle was different from the silence in my home. That silence was heavy, oppressive, demanding. This silence was clinical. It was a space waiting to be filled. I looked at his tired, professional eyes. He was not judging me. He was not angry with me. He was waiting for data. The stone in my throat cracked. Not a flood, just a few broken shards. My family, I whispered. The admission tasted like rust and betrayal, and terrifyingly, like relief. He nodded slowly, his face unreadable. Okay, I stammered, the words clumsy. The car. The BMW. The BMW, he repeated, just to show he was listening. It was a gift for my brother. My breath hitched. The monitor beside the bed, the one they had just attached my leads to, picked up the pace. His 18th birthday. It was the party. I stopped. The rest of it was too insane. They thought I was paying for it. They demanded I sign the papers. They wanted my inheritance. Beep, 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 beep. The small screen flashed. The nurse was back, drawn by the sound. Heart rate is spiking again, she said, her voice calm. She checked the cuff on my arm. Aliyah, I need you to slow your breathing. You're safe here. Can you breathe with me? But the memory had its teeth in me now. The scene played out, sharp and violent. My father's face, not angry, but rigid with a terrifying cold righteousness. Are you going to hand over the keys or hand this family a scandal? The keys, the fake keys, the prop, the empty blue velvet box in my jacket pocket. It had only weight. The small, harmless house key I had put inside. Eli's voice, whining, incredulous. Leah, stop being so weird. Just give it to me. Everyone is watching. And my mother, her hiss closer than anyone else's, you are embarrassing us. You are destroying this family. Beep, 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 beep. Aliyah, look at me, the nurse commanded. In through your nose. Hold it. Out through your mouth. I tried to obey, dragging air into my protesting lungs. The push. It flashed behind my eyes. It was not my father, with his explosive, shattering anger. It was not Eli, with his spoiled impatience. It was my mother, in the screaming chaos after the glass broke. As I stood there frozen, my silence a wall they were all screaming at, she had grabbed my upper arm. Her fingers, covered in her heirloom rings, dug into my muscle. Do not, she seethed, her face a mask of social terror. Do not you dare ruin this for him. And she shoved me. It was not a violent, winding punch. It was a shove of dismissal, a shove that said, get out of the way. You are an obstacle. I stumbled back. My heel hit the wheel of the heavy teakwood bar cart. The world inverted. My head connected with the sharp granite corner. It was not a loud crack. It was a dull, sickening thud. The last thing I saw before the blue stone patio rushed up to meet my shoulder was the face of Mrs. Edwards, our neighbor. Her mouth was open in a perfect O of horror. Her voice was the one that finally called for help. Beep, beep, beep. The monitor was slowing down. The nurse nodded, satisfied. That's better. Just keep breathing like that. John, the medic, gave her a final nod and pulled the curtain open just enough to slip out. I was alone. I was in a hospital. My name was Aliyah Fox. My head was pounding, a deep tidal ache that started behind my right eye and radiated down my neck. My shoulder was a constellation of fire. But underneath the pain, something else was forming. Something hard and cold and clear. For my entire life, they had used my silence. They interpreted it as agreement. They molded it into obedience. They used it as a soft, comfortable cushion for their own desires. When I was silent, they heard, yes, of course. When I was silent, they heard, whatever you think is best. When I was silent, they heard, I don't mind. Please take it today on the patio. When my father demanded the keys to a car I never bought, I was silent. And for the first time in my life, they heard no. My silence was not compliance, it was a refusal. It was a boundary, solid and real. And they shattered themselves against it. I stared at the pale green curtain, focusing on the repeating pattern of the leaves. The monitor beeped, a steady, boring rhythm. I made a promise not to God, not to the universe, but to the name on the plastic bracelet. From this moment on, my silence was my own. It would be my strategy. It would be my shield. It would be my weapon. It would never, ever be their chain again. The white picket fences of West Ridge County were famous. They were pristine, gleaming, a testament to suburban order. They were also a lie. Our fence was painted every spring, a ritual of denial. It was there to look good from the road, to obscure the cracked foundation just behind the hydrangeas, to muffle the sounds that did not fit the aesthetic. My childhood was spent inside that fence, learning the art of maintaining the facade. My brother, Eli, was the facade centerpiece. Our mantelpiece was a shrine to his mediocrity, with rows of brass-plated plastic trophies stacked high: Most Improved Player, Westridge Soccer Participation Award, Spirit Award, 8th grade. They were awards for showing up. They shone under the track lighting my father installed just for them. My awards lived in the bottom drawer of my father's desk, the one that stuck. A blue ribbon from the state writing competition, folded until the silk cracked. A first-place regional essay contest certificate, the ink already fading. A small, heavy glass plaque for a poetry portfolio. They were not for display. They were, as my mother once explained when a relative asked, private accomplishments. They were quiet. Eli's achievements were loud. Our family only valued what was loud. From the time I could read, I was the responsible one. That word was not a compliment, it was a job description. It was a metal made of lead, pinning me in place. Leah, you're responsible. Watch your brother. Leah, you're responsible. You understand why we have to cancel your appointment, Leah. You're responsible. You'll handle the cleanup. It meant I was the designated shock absorber for the family's impacts. I was expected to absorb the blows, the inconveniences, the financial strains, and remain perfectly, silently in shape. Eli was the investment. I was the utility. I got my first job at 16 at the West Public Library. It was not a job. It was an escape. I loved the solid, heavy quiet. I loved the smell of paper and old glue, the sense of order that came from the Dewey Decimal System, a logic the rest of my world lacked. I loved the paycheck even more. It was $92.50 a week. It was mine. It was mine for exactly 1 week. Leah, honey, can you float the house? My mother asked, her hand out, her smile perfectly casual. We were standing by the refrigerator. The property tax bill had come in higher than they expected. Float the house. Just lend us your paycheck. We're a little short until your father's bonus comes in. It's for the family. I handed over the crisp envelope. The $92 vanished. The next week it was for an unexpected plumbing issue. The week after, Eli's field trip fees. It was never a loan, it was an expectation. It was my contribution. My money was absorbed into the household budget, while Eli's allowance, a generous $50 a week for existing, was his own to be spent on video games and designer sneakers. When I tried to save by hiding a $20 bill in a book, my mother would find it. Oh, thank goodness. I needed cash for the cleaner. You are such a help, Leah. I learned not to bother saving. My labor was just another resource to be consumed. I was praised for it, of course, just not at home, at neighborhood barbecues. I was my mother's favorite prop. Oh, Leah, she's just so easy, I heard her tell Mrs. Edwards over the sound of sizzling burgers. So low maintenance. We never have to worry about her. She just gets it. She's so low maintenance. It was the ultimate compliment in our world. It meant I was not a burden. It meant I did not ask for anything. It meant my needs were small enough to be invisible. I learned to shrink, to fold myself up like my blue ribbon, to fit into the drawer. To be invisible was to be good. To be good was to be safe. The family had a catechism, a central belief repeated like a prayer. It was usually spoken by my father over dinner, as he passed Eli the largest cut of meat. Investing in Eli is investing in the future of this family. Eli, with his C average and his casual charisma, was the future. I, with my 4.0 GPA and my library job, was the present. I was the infrastructure, the roads, the plumbing, the electrical grid. You only notice the infrastructure when it fails, you never celebrate it for just working. This core belief was tested when I was 17. I found a brochure at the library for a young writer summer program. It was a 3-week intensive workshop at a small college in Vermont. It was everything I had ever wanted. It cost $2,000. I had been secretly saving, skimming tiny amounts from my shifts, hiding the cash in a hole I'd cut into an old copy of * Moby Dick Star. I had $800. I approached my parents, my hands shaking, the brochure damp with my sweat. I can pay for almost half, I said, my voice small. I just need help with the rest. It's a really good program. It could lead to scholarships. My mother glanced at the brochure and passed it to my father. He looked at the price, and his face hardened into the familiar mask of paternal disappointment. Leah, we have to be realistic, he said. The lecture began. Realistic was his favorite word. $2,000 for 3 weeks of stories. That is not a practical investment. That is a hobby, a luxury. It is not a hobby, I argued, my voice trembling. It is what I am good at. Your teachers are not paying our mortgage, my father cut in. We are putting every spare cent into Eli's SAT prep, his tutoring, his travel team. That is what gets you into a good school. That is what builds a future. You understand, don't you? You are the responsible one. I nodded. The stone was already forming in my throat. And besides, my mother added, her tone bright, trying to smooth over the refusal, we need you here this summer. Eli has his driving lessons, and someone needs to be home for the painters. We are counting on you. I did not go to the writing camp. That summer, I spent my saved $800 on groceries when my father's bonus was smaller than expected. I painted the trim on the second floor windows myself to save money, and I drove Eli to every single driving lesson, sitting in the passenger seat, silent as he complained about the instructor. My parents were proud, not of me, but of the idea of me. They loved telling people, we have raised such a good daughter, they said it at church. They said it at school functions. They said it when they signed me up to volunteer for committees they wanted to impress. They took credit for my compliance. They harvested my quiet diligence and presented it as their own successful parenting. No one, not once, ever turned to me and asked, but Leah, what do you want? The question itself would have sounded like a foreign language. The ultimate symbol of this disparity arrived on Eli's 16th birthday. We were not a family that could afford new luxury cars. But my father, after weeks of secretive phone calls, pulled a 1998 dark blue BMW 3 Series into the driveway. It was 12 years old, had over 100,000 miles, and a suspicious noise in the transmission. But the logo on the hood was all that mattered. "It needs some work," my father announced, beaming, throwing the keys to Eli. "But we build from a good foundation. A man needs a good car." Eli, who had failed his permit test twice, was a king. For my 16th birthday, 6 months earlier, I had received a 10-speed bicycle. It was not new. It was a rusted, mustard yellow hammer-down from a cousin. The chain was greasy, and the tires were bald. "It has character," my father had said, patting the handlebars. "And the exercise will be good for you. You are in the library too much." I looked at the rusted bike, then at Eli's gleaming blue status symbol. I did not cry. I did not yell. I did not point out that my library job was paying for the gasoline Eli was now burning. I simply got on the bike, my legs aching as I forced the grinding pedals, and rode to my shift. It was on that ride, the metallic squeak of the chain in my ears, that the belief finally cemented itself in my bones. It was a dangerous, toxic piece of logic, and it became my operating system. Love was not a feeling, it was a transaction. Love was service. My value was directly proportional to my utility. My purpose was to give, and their purpose was to take. And the only way to survive in that system, the only way to avoid the lectures, the disappointment, the rage, was to be silent. Silence was not weakness, it was armor. Silence was not empty, it was full of compliance, of agreement, of whatever they needed it to be. Silence was my contribution. Silence was my duty. Silence, I believed, was peace. The hospital diagnosed it as a mild concussion and shock. They released me after 6 hours with a pamphlet on head injuries and a number for a crisis hotline. They asked if I had a safe place to go. I lied. I said yes. I took a cab back to the house using the last $43 of my library cash. The house was dark, silent. The backyard was clean, the broken glass, the toppled chairs, the remnants of the party all gone. It was as if it had never happened. My parents' cars were in the driveway. They were home, asleep, having erased the evening. I let myself in through the side door, my movements practiced and silent. I did not exist. I went to my room, locked the flimsy door, and waited for the dawn. The silence held for 2 days. It was a thick, pressurized silence, worse than the yelling. We orbited each other in the kitchen, 3 astronauts in a failing space station, never making eye contact. The air hummed with what was unsaid. Then the letter arrived. It came on a Wednesday, tucked between a utility bill and a catalogue for lawn furniture. The envelope was thick, cream-colored, and heavy. The return address was a law firm in Boston, Evermorn Trust Fiduciary. But it was the address that stopped my breath. It was not the Fox household. It was not Leah Fox. It was addressed in crisp, black, serious type to Ms. Alia Fox. I took it to my room and slit the envelope open with a trembling finger. The letterhead was embossed. It was from a man named Hal Whitaker, Esquire. It was confusing, full of legal terms like testamentary trust, beneficiary, and fiduciary duty. And then I saw my grandfather's name, my mother's father. He died when I was 10. A quiet man who smelled of pipe tobacco and peppermints. I remembered him as the only adult who ever asked me questions about the books I was reading. According to the letter, he had left me a trust. It was not a fortune, but it was not nothing. It was to be managed by Mr. Whitaker and released to me on my 35th birthday, a date that was still years away. I almost put the letter down, a dull ache of disappointment settling in. It was another thing that was mine, but not mine. But then my eyes caught the subclause, Section 12, Paragraph B, the hardship provision. It stated that the trustee, Mr. Whittaker, held the discretion to release funds prior to the maturation date in the event of specific documented circumstances. These included medical emergency, unforeseen financial distress, or, and I read the words 3 times, immediate threats to the beneficiary's personal safety or well-being. A threat to my well-being. I waited until the house was empty. Eli was at soccer practice. My mother was at her volunteer committee meeting. My father was at work. The house was mine for 1 hour. I locked my bedroom door and dialed the number from the letterhead with my old cell phone, the one my parents monitored. My hand was shaking so badly I misdialed twice. Evermore Trust, this is Hal Whittaker. His voice was not the sharp, aggressive tone I expected from a lawyer. It was warm, steady, and low. It sounded like old wood and coffee. Hello, Mr. Whittaker, I whispered. My name is Aaliyah Fox. You sent me a letter about my grandfather's trust. Ah, Miss Fox, Aaliyah. Yes, there was a kind recognition in his voice, as if he had been waiting for the call. I'm so glad you reached out. I knew your grandfather. He was a very meticulous man, and very fond of you. Fond of me? The words felt foreign. I have a question about the hardship clause. Section 12b. The warmth in his voice did not fade, but it was joined by a sudden, sharp focus. Yes, the provision. Are you in some kind of trouble, Aaliyah? The direct question, the simple use of my name, the assumption that I mattered, it shattered my composure. A dry sob escaped me. I covered my mouth, horrified. I'm sorry, I gasped. Do not apologize, he said, his voice firm but gentle. Listen to me. Your grandfather was very specific when he set this up. He was worried. He wanted to ensure you had a way out. This trust, Aaliyah, it is not a family asset. It is not your parents' money to manage. It is not your brother's college fund. He paused, letting the words sink in. This trust is only for you. I was crying silently now, the tears hot on my cheeks. Only for me. If you are in distress, he continued, if you feel unsafe, or if you are being coerced, you tell me. We can activate the provision. Coerced. The word hung in the air. The same word I had seen on the crisis hotline pamphlet. I heard the garage door open downstairs. My mother. I have to go, I whispered, frantic. I can't talk. Wait, he said. Do not use this phone. Do you have a safe email, a safe way to communicate? I'll find one. I have to go. I hung up as her footsteps hit the stairs. I wiped my face, hiding the letter under my mattress. The next day, the house phone rang. I was in the kitchen, reading the pamphlet from the ER. My mother picked up the phone at the desk in the hall. Fox Residence, this is Diane, she said, her bright, melodic voice. There was a long pause. I saw her back stiffen, her head tilted. Oh, she said. From Evermore Trust regarding Aaliyah. My blood ran cold. Yes, of course, Mr. Whittaker. I handle all of Aaliyah's financial matters. She's just so overwhelmed with her studies. You know how it is. She prefers I manage the details. She was smiling as she spoke. It was her committee smile. Absolutely. If there's any paperwork, just send it directly to me. I'll make sure it's managed properly. We are so grateful her grandfather thought of the family. She saw me standing in the doorway. Her eyes, cold and assessing, met mine. She held my gaze as she hung up the phone. "That was about your little fund, honey," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Just some boring tax forms. I told him I would handle it for you." "He said it was just for me," I whispered. My mother's smile vanished. "Do not be selfish, Aliyah. What is yours is ours. We are a family. This money will be a tremendous help when we start looking at Eli's college applications. He has his eye on some private schools." She had already spent it. In her mind, it was gone. It was Eli's. That evening, my father came to my room. He did not knock. He held a stack of documents, thick and bound. "Your mother told me about the call," he said. His voice was flat. "Business. This is a formality. We are restructuring some of our assets to prepare for Eli's future. It's time you contributed." He dropped the stack on my desk. "I need you to sign here and here. It just gives me power of attorney to manage that trust. Consolidates things. Makes it cleaner." I looked at the pages. They were dense with language I did not understand. I want to read it first." His face, which had been set in impatient boredom, darkened. "Aliyah," he said, his voice dropping to the low, dangerous tone that preceded an explosion. "Do not be difficult. I am your father. I am not asking you. I am telling you. We do not have time for you to play lawyer. You are part of this family, and you will do your part." He tapped the signature line with a thick finger. "Sign it. Don't read it." The words of my childhood. Asterisk, you're responsible. Don't be selfish. Don't be difficult. Asterisk. "No," I said. It was the quietest sound. But in that room, it was a gunshot. He stared at me, his eyes wide with disbelief, then narrowing into pure, cold rage. "What did you say?" "I won't. I want Mr. Whitaker to see it." I knew I had hours, maybe less. The next morning, I told them I had an extra shift at the library. I took my rusted bike and rode not to my library, but to the public library in the next town over. I sat at a public terminal in the back, my heart pounding against my ribs. I created a new email address, an encrypted one, anonymous. I used the library's computer to research banks, not the one my parents used. I found Pioneer Credit Union, a small local bank with a branch 2 towns away, 30 miles in the opposite direction. I opened an account online, with a $100 emergency bill I kept hidden in my shoe. I went to a convenience store, and bought a prepaid burner phone. From the burner phone, I called Mr. Whitaker. "It's Leah Fox," I said, my voice shaking. "They tried to make me sign. My mother intercepted your call. They are trying to take it." "Do not sign anything," he commanded, his voice all business now. "I am activating the hardship provision based on our conversation. It will take time, but I need to send you documents securely." "Where can I send them?" "The library," I said, the idea forming as I spoke. "The Westridge Public Library. Send them to me. Care of Mrs. Kemp." I went back to my library. Mrs. Kemp, the head librarian, was checking in a stack of books. She had worked there for 30 years. She had watched me grow up, checking out stacks of novels, hiding in the history section. "Mrs. Kemp," I said, my voice low. "I need to ask you a very large favor. I am in some trouble. I am expecting an important legal package. It cannot go to my house. Can I have it sent here to you?" She stopped stamping. She looked up at me over the top of her reading glasses. She did not ask why. She did not ask who it was from. She just looked at my face, At the new faint bruise hidden by my hair, at the terror in my eyes. She nodded once. "Of course, dear," she said, her voice soft. "It will be safe here." She reached across the counter and put her warm, papery hand on my arm. It was a simple, grounding touch. "Whatever it is, it will be safe." I retreated to a terminal. I typed in the words from the ER pamphlet. The words Mr. Whitaker had used: financial coercion. The screen filled with definitions. Using money, assets, or financial documents to control or intimidate, forcing an individual to sign papers against their will, threatening to cut off resources, demanding access to accounts. It was a checklist of my entire life. I was not difficult. I was not selfish. I was not unrealistic. I was a victim. The realization was sickening, but it was also freeing. I was not crazy. This was real. It had a name. I typed in something else: Protective Order County. The links flooded in. I read about affidavits, about evidence, about how to file for a temporary order. I took the smallest spiral notebook I had bought with the burner phone. I opened it to the first page. I thought about the family motto: investing in Eli is investing in the family. I wrote a new one, a mantra just for me. If I do not save myself, no one will. The mantra became my heartbeat. If I do not save myself, no one will. I stopped seeing the house as a home. It was a holding cell. And my family members were my wardens. But they were complacent. They had underestimated the responsible one. They mistook my silence for submission, my shock for defeat. They did not realize that my silence was now a tool. It was the quiet of a strategist. I became a collector of my own trauma. My old phone, the one my father paid for and monitored, was a liability, but its cloud-based history was my single greatest asset. I sat at the public terminal in the West Ridge Library, my back to the wall, and spent 3 hours meticulously logging into my own accounts and forwarding years of digital chains to my new encrypted email address. The text messages were a timeline of coercion from my mother. Leah, Eli needs $500 for the travel team trip to the regionals by Friday. From my father. Your mother is stressed, so just use your savings. We will call it your contribution. Your mother's car needs a new transmission. Take the money from your work account. Do not make me ask you again. From Eli. Mom said you had cash. I need it for my date. Don't be weird about it. Just leave it on the counter. And the most recent ones from my father, after I refused to sign his papers. This is not a discussion, Aliyah. You will sign. I am warning you. Do not test me. The texts were cold, but I needed his voice. I needed the sound of the threat. My burner phone had a voice recorder. I practiced activating it in my pocket, the single silent click of the button. I waited. It only took a day. He cornered me in the upstairs hallway, blocking the stairs. He still held the unsigned documents. I am running out of patience, he said, his voice low and guttural. Are you going to sign these papers today? Or am I going to have to take a different approach? I fumbled with the button. Click. I don't understand them, I whispered, the lie tasting like ash. You do not need to understand them, he spat. You just need to sign. This is for the family. This is for Eli. Your signature, Aliyah. That is all you are good for right now. Sign the papers. What if I don't? He leaned in, his face inches from mine. I could smell the stale coffee on his breath. You will, he snarled, because if you don't, I will personally call that library and tell them you have been stealing from the petty cash. I will call that little bank of yours and report your account as fraudulent. I will make sure you cannot even get a job washing dishes in this town. Do you understand me? Click. I fled to my room, locked the door, and leaned against it, my body shaking, but my hand was steady as I saved the audio file. I named it coercion. I went to the library, uploaded it to my secure email, and sent a copy to Mr. Whittaker with the subject line, proof. Now, the trap, the BMW. It was the sun around which my entire family now orbited. They were consumed by it. My mother discussed paint colors. My father researched insurance. Eli spent hours on a website configuring his car. They had, in their shared delusion, already bought it. They had test-driven it. They had chosen the model. They just needed my grandfather's money to pay for it. The party, Eli's 18th birthday, was the stage. My gift was to be the main event. They expected me to stand up, make a speech, and hand my future over to my brother in front of all their friends. I went to a stationery store and bought a single dark blue velvet envelope, the kind meant for expensive gift certificates. Then I went to an electronics store and bought a single white AirTag. I paid for both in cash. At the library, I activated the tracker. I placed the small white disc inside the velvet envelope. It was not a key, it was a beacon. It was a prop. Mr. Whittaker had called it a tangible asset. If they tried to take it from me, it would be attempted theft. If I refused to hand it over, it would be the start of the confrontation. The envelope was my own personal hardship clause. Next, I needed a witness, not a friend. I had none. I needed an alarm system. I waited by my front window until I saw Mrs. Edwards, our neighbor, checking her mail. The same woman who had seen my mother shove me. The same woman who had called 911. I walked outside, my movement slow. I let her see me in the full light of day. I had makeup on, but the yellow-green shadow of the bruise on my temple was still visible if you looked closely. "Aliyah, dear," she said, her voice laced with a nervous pity. "My goodness. Are you feeling all right after your fall?" "I'm okay, Mrs. Edwards," I said, my voice just above a whisper. I did not meet her eyes. "Thank you for calling for help." "Of course, dear. We were all so worried." She hesitated. "Your mother said you just fainted, that the party, that you were overwhelmed." I looked up, letting her see the fear in my eyes. "I did not have to fake it. It's just Eli's party is this Saturday," I said, as if sharing a terrible secret. "A new party. They are planning something big. My father, he gets very intense about Eli's birthdays." I let the sentence hang in the air. I am worried it might get loud again." I continued twisting my hands. "I am so afraid of disappointing him, Mrs. Edwards' face hardened with a quiet, neighborly understanding. "Aliyah," I said, "this is going to sound crazy, but if you hear shouting on Saturday, I mean really loud shouting like last time, would you mind? Could you just call 911 again, just in case? I am probably just being silly, but I would feel safer knowing someone was listening." I had not accused anyone. I had not told her a single detail. I had simply shown her my fear and given her a job. "I will be listening, dear," she said, her voice grim. "I will have my phone right by the window." My human alarm was set. I called Mr. Whittaker from my burner phone, huddled in the staff break room on my lunch. "I have the audio," I said. "And the texts. And I have a witness." "Good," his voice was calm, anchoring. "I have the hardship affidavit drafted and ready. It details the history of financial coercion and the immediate threat, but it's missing the trigger, the final piece, to release the funds immediately, to force the trust to protect you. I need what is called a precipitating event, a third-party report, a medical file, a police incident number. I was silent, understanding him completely. The plan was not to avoid the party. The plan was to use the party. He needs a signature from a doctor, I thought, or a police officer. What if they hurt me again? This time, it will be the last time, he said, his voice cold. This time, it will be your liberation. But Aliyah, you cannot go back to that house after. Do you have a safety plan? He gave me the number for the Riverton Advocacy Center. I called them. The woman who answered was named Angela. She did not ask why. What is your safety plan for Saturday night? She asked. I don't have one. You do now, she said, her voice crisp and efficient. We have a 2-night reservation for you at a hotel near the county line starting Saturday. It is under a different name, which I will text to your secure phone. Do you have transportation? My bike, I said. That is not fast enough, she replied instantly. We have a voucher with a local car service. They will be staged 2 blocks from your address on Maple Street starting at 7 p.m. The name on the voucher is Jane Smith. Do you have funds? I have a little, I said, thinking of my new account. Do not use it, she instructed. We will handle the hotel. Your only job is to get to the car. I was building a new life, a secret one, right under their noses. I went to the post office in Riverton, near the Advocacy Center. I used my new Pioneer Credit Union debit card, the first plastic card I had ever held that had only my name on it, to open a small post office box. All my mail from Whitaker, from the bank, from my new invisible life would go there. I packed a small black duffel bag, not my favorite clothes, but the most practical ones, 2 pairs of jeans, 3 shirts, underwear, socks, my new toothbrush, the burner phone charger, my grandfather's original letter, and the small notebook with my new mantra. I took the bag to the library. Sarah, who worked the evening shift with me, was at the checkout desk. We were not friends, just colleagues united by a shared love of quiet, and a mutual dislike of rude patrons. Sarah, I said, I have a really weird, gross favor to ask. She looked up. Weirder than the guy who wanted to laminate the ancient map. I think I have bed bugs in my room, I confessed. I am having an exterminator come this weekend, and I need to get all my fabrics out. Can I please leave this bag at your apartment for a few days? I am so embarrassed. She winced in sympathy. Oh God, that is awful. Yeah, sure. Put it in my trunk. Just make sure it is sealed. It is, I lied. My escape route was now in place, a bag, a car, a hotel room. Mr. Whitaker emailed me a draft of a cease and desist letter. It was the most terrifying document I had ever read. It listed my father, my mother, and Eli by name. It formally accused them of violating fiduciary duties, of intentional infliction of emotional distress, and of a conspiracy to commit financial coercion. This is not to send, his email read. This is for you to read. This is what is true. This is what we file if they contact you after Saturday. Read it. Know your rights. Know the truth. I read it until I had it memorized. It was my shield. But I would not need that letter on Saturday. I needed something simpler, something I could say when the moment came. I went into the library staff bathroom and looked at my own face in the cracked mirror. I looked at the pale skin, the tired eyes, the faint bruise. I'm not giving you the car, I whispered. It sounded weak, like a question. I tried again. You can't have the money. Defensive. I thought about what this was. They were not just asking for a car. They were not just asking for money. They were taking my grandfather's one act of love, my one chance at a future, and turning it into a party favor, a prop for their golden boy. I stood up straight. I met my own gaze. There is no car, I said, my voice low and clear. My future is not a prop. I said it again and again. I said it until it stopped sounding like a line and started sounding like a fact. A cold, hard part of my mind, a part one had never met before, noted my actions. I was collecting evidence. I was setting a trap. I was preparing for a confrontation I knew would turn violent. I was deliberately walking into an ambush. But I was the one who had mined the field. The old Aliyah, the responsible one, recoiled. This was ugly. This was calculating. This was betrayal. Then I touched the tender spot on my temple. This was not revenge. Revenge is about inflicting pain, and I had no desire to cause anyone pain. I just wanted mine to stop. This was not an act of aggression, it was an act of extraction, a surgeon cutting away a disease. This was not an attack, it was self-preservation. The backyard was an illusion, a stage set for a play about a happy, successful American family. My father had spared no expense. Thousands of tiny, warm white lights were strung from the house to the old oak tree, drooping in graceful arcs over the blue stone patio. They formed a false canopy, a glowing, intimate sky that masked the real one. The air was heavy, almost suffocating, with the sweet, acrid smell of hickory smoke from the grill and the cloying, expensive perfume my mother wore for special occasions. From speakers hidden in the landscaping, a playlist of bland, upbeat 70s rock provided a constant, cheerful hum, forcing everyone to speak just a little louder, to laugh a little harder. It was an advertisement for happiness, meticulously crafted, and like all advertisements, it was a beautiful, dangerous lie. I stood near the cold, unlit fire pit, a ghost at my own family's feast. I watched my mother, Diane, glide through the crowd. She was magnificent in her role. Her dress was a deep, shimmering blue, her blonde hair professionally blown out. She held a glass of Chardonnay, as if it were a scepter. Her laugh, a bright, tinkling sound that drew people in. "David, Margaret, I'm so glad you could make it," she exclaimed, air-kissing a neighboring couple. "Can you believe he's 18? It feels like just yesterday, I was packing his lunch for kindergarten. It's too much." She was the picture of the adoring, emotional mother. She saw me, her eyes, sharp as blue ice, flicking past me. The smile did not waver, but her gaze was a physical weight. It was a silent, clear command, *, do not move. Do not speak. You are scenery. *. She turned back to her friends, dismissing me as completely as one would dismiss a garden gnome. My father, Richard, was at the grill. This was his domain. He wore a crisp white chef's apron over his polo shirt, brandishing a set of oversized stainless steel tools. He was performing the part of the magnanimous patriarch, laughing loudly with his business partners, his voice booming over the music. "The market is what it is, Jim," he was saying. "But a smart man knows when to invest in solid assets." He saw me watching and motioned me over with the barbecue tongs. I walked through the clusters of adults, my feet feeling distant and numb on the soft grass. "Aliyah," he said, not bothering to lower his voice. He leaned in, the smell of bourbon and smoke rolling off him. "I'm making the announcement at 8 o'clock, right after the cake, when I call you. You walk up, you give him the envelope, and you say the line I told you, 'We are all so proud of you, Eli.' This is just the beginning. Got it?" "Yes," I said. My voice was flat. I was a vending machine. He has inserted his coin and received his product. "Your part is later," he said, turning back to his friends. "Don't wander off. And for God's sake, try to look happy." It's a party. He did not wait for an answer. He was already laughing at another man's joke. And then there was Eli, the prince, the center of this manufactured universe. He was by the pool, which glowed an eerie chemical blue in the twilight. He was surrounded by his friends, a pack of loud, confident boys with identical haircuts and girls in thin dresses who laughed at everything they said. Eli was performing, too. He was playing the humble prince, all shrugs and easy smiles. I honestly have no idea, man, he was saying, loud enough for the entire group to hear. My dad's been so secretive. He just told me to keep the driveway clear. It's probably just, I don't know, a new laptop for college or something. It was a terrible, clumsy performance. He knew exactly what he was getting. He had picked out the color. Dude, shut up, one of his friends, a boy named Kyle, said, shoving him. It's the BMW. It has to be. My dad saw your dad at the dealership. Did he get the M package, or just the regular series? Because if it's not the M, that's barely even a car. For real, another said. My mom's got the I, it's like a fancy Prius. Stop, guys. Seriously, Eli said. But he was beaming. His face flushed with a greedy, ecstatic light. He could already feel the leather. See the envy. His future was a tangible thing, a status symbol waiting just beyond the side gate. I turned away, my stomach twisting. I moved past a circle of my mother's friends, the women from her book club and the charity board. I heard my name, and I froze. So lucky Diane has Aliyah, one woman, Mrs. Davies, was saying, her voice a confidential murmur. She's just so helpful. She does everything. The setup today was all her. Diane told me, she's a wonderful daughter. Another woman whispered back, so quiet, so supportive of her brother. She knows her place. She knows her place. The words were a eulogy. They were praising a death. My place was the supporting role. My place was to be the silent, efficient infrastructure that allowed Eli's life to be a celebration. The words, meant as the highest form of praise in their world, felt like a shovelful of cold dirt on my own chest. I was the responsible one, the easy one, the one who understood. I was the good daughter, which was just another way of saying I was the good servant. My hand tightened in my jacket pocket. The cheap synthetic velvet of the gift envelope was slick against my palm. I felt the hard, cold disc inside it. The AirTag, my prop, my beacon. It was not a key. It was not a car. It was a small piece of plastic and metal that represented the entire crushing weight of their expectations. It was the physical object they intended to trade for my grandfather's legacy. It was the bait. I looked back at the party. It was a sea of smiling, predatory faces. The teenagers by the pool were no longer just talking. Their phones were out. They were held low at waist height, filming. They were capturing snippets of the party, the lights, the laughter, all of it. B-roll for the main event, Eli's epic 18th, the big reveal. They were the chorus, a digital jury ready to broadcast the triumph or the tragedy. Social media is always hungry. It does not care which one it gets. A strange, cold calm washed over me. The buzzing in my ears, the thumping of my heart, the frantic run that had been screaming in my head all day, it all just stopped. The air grew very still. The music seemed to fade. I could feel the solid ground under my shoes. I could feel the steel rod of my own spine. I was not a guest. I was not a daughter. I was not a sister. I was a witness. Ting, ting, ting. The sound of a silver spoon striking a crystal wine glass cut through the air. It was a sharp, demanding sound. The music was cut. The chatter died, replaced by a ripple of expectant shushing. 100 faces turned toward the deck. My father stood there, a fresh glass of bourbon in his hand, his arm around Eli's shoulders. My mother stood on his other side, her hand pressed to her heart, her face a mask of perfect, quivering pride. "If I can have everyone's attention," my father said, his voice booming into the sudden silence. "Thank you all. Thank you for being here, our dearest friends, to celebrate this incredible milestone." He looked at Eli, his face softening with a practiced paternal love. 18 years. 18 years ago, this young man made me the proudest man on earth. And today we are so proud of the man he is becoming. He paused, letting the silence stretch, building the drama. Eli was vibrating, his eyes fixed on the driveway. "Now, your mother and I," my father continued, "we believe that when a man is ready to step into the world, he needs the right foundation, the right tools." A few of his friends cheered. "Get him the tools, Rich." My father laughed. "We wanted to give him a good, solid start, a little something to help him on his way." He paused, and his smile became a tight, commanding thing. His eyes scanned the shadows, hunting, and found me. "But this is not just from us. This is a true family effort. Your wonderful, responsible sister, Aliyah, she has been instrumental in helping us put this together. She has something for you. Eli, Aliyah, come on up." The spotlight was on me. It was not a real light, but 100 pairs of eyes, all turning, all focusing. I saw Mrs. Davies smiling, expectant. I saw Eli's friends, their phones now raised high, filming openly. I saw Kyle, his mouth in a smirk, already bored, waiting for the car. I saw my mother, her smile a beautiful, terrifying threat. Perform. Do not ruin this. I saw my father, his gaze a steel hook, reeling me in. Now obey. I saw Mrs. Edwards, our neighbor, a small silhouette in her kitchen window, watching. The silence was total. The world had stopped breathing. There was no music, no laughter, just the frantic pounding of my own heart, a drumbeat in the vast, terrible quiet. The silent drop had arrived. It was my turn. I did not move. The silence stretched, pulling thin. The expectant smiles on the faces in the crowd began to falter, drooping into confusion. The festive lights hummed. My father's smile was a row of teeth, a threat. Aliyah. Now, Eli shifted beside him, the excitement on his face curdling into a petulant impatience. Leah, come on, he whined, loud enough for the first few rows to hear. Stop being weird. I took a single step forward onto the stone of the patio. My feet felt heavy, as if I were walking through wet cement. I did not walk toward the deck, toward my family. I walked toward the small glass table in the center of the patio, the one holding a platter of untouched cheeses. I stopped. I faced my father. The entire party was a silent theater, and I was the only actor who had broken script. I took a breath, feeling the air move into my lungs. It was cold, sharp. There is no car, I said. My voice was not a whisper. It was not a shout. It was a statement of fact delivered at a normal conversational volume. But in the absolute, pressurized silence, it was a thunderclap. For 1, 2, 3 full seconds, the world remained frozen. Then the sound began. It was not a gasp. It was a collective, sighing hiss. The sound of 100 people inhaling at once. I heard a silver spoon clatter against a ceramic plate. To my left, one of my father's partners, a man named Jim, had been lifting a glass of red wine. He choked, a wet, violent sound, spraying a fine mist of mellow onto the blue stone. He bent over, coughing, his face turning a dark, blotchy purple. The sound was a violation. The phones that had been pointed at Eli, waiting for the car, now swiveled. They all found me. A sea of small, dark lenses. The red recording lights blinked on, one by one. Eli's face was a mask of disbelief. The princely, humble gratitude vanished, replaced by the raw, furious confusion of a child who has just had his favorite toy snatched away. He stormed off the deck. He did not wait for his parents. He crossed the patio and grabbed my upper arm, his fingers digging into my muscle, right on the old, fading bruise. "What did you just say?" he hissed, his face inches from mine. "Give me the keys. Stop this. You owe me. You owe me the family anthem." I looked down at his hand, gripping my arm. Then I looked back up at his face. I did not flinch. I did not pull away. I simply relaxed every muscle in my arm, letting it go limp. And then, with a slow, deliberate movement, I turned my shoulder and slid out of his grasp. It was effortless. It was as gentle and as final as closing a book. "I owe you nothing, Eli." He recoiled as if I had struck him. My mother was there instantly. She glided up beside me, her own smile fixed, a terrifying rictus. She looked out at the watching guests, her eyes bright, as if she were about to share a hilarious secret. "She has such a dark sense of humor," my mother announced to the crowd. Then she turned to me, her smile never slipping, but her voice was a venomous whisper, a blade of ice. "Do not embarrass this family. I mean it, Aaliyah. You will not ruin this night." I turned to face her. I looked at the rigid muscles in her jaw, the panic in her eyes. "The family embarrassed itself," I said, my voice just as quiet, just as clear. "It embarrassed itself when it decided I was not a daughter, but a bank." Her smile shattered. The whispers were getting louder now. "What is she saying? Did she say bank? I thought she bought him the car." My father descended the steps from the deck. He was no longer the jovial host. He was the man from the hallway. He was the man from the audio recording I had sent to Mr. Whitaker. His face was pale. His jaw was set so tight a muscle jumped. He did not look at the guests. He did not look at his wife or his son. He walked directly to me, stopping so close that I had to tilt my head back to look at him. He did not yell. He did not accuse. He simply issued a command. "Give me the keys." His voice was low, heavy, and absolute. It was the voice of a man who had never been told no. "Are you going to hand over the keys?" he whispered, his eyes boring into mine. "Or hand this family a scandal?" I put my hand into my jacket pocket. I saw the tension leave his shoulders. A tiny, triumphant smirk flickered at the corner of his mouth. He thought he had won. He thought the public pressure, the weight of 100 watching eyes, had been enough. I pulled out the blue velvet envelope, the prop. He reached for it, his hand a snatching claw. I did not place it in his hand. I turned, took one step, and placed it on the glass table next to the platter of cheese. It lay there flat, a rectangle of dark blue velvet, obscenely empty. He stared at it. He knew. He knew it was flat. He knew there was no heavy metallic lump inside. He grabbed it anyway. He was a desperate man. Clinging to the script, he ripped the flap open. A sound like tearing cloth. He plunged his thick fingers inside, rooting around. He pulled them out, empty. He held the envelope up to the light. He shook it, a frantic, violent motion. Nothing fell out. It was an empty envelope, an artifact of their lie. "Where is it?" he demanded, his voice cracking. "What did you do with it? What is this?" "That is all there is," I said. "There is no car. There is no money. There is nothing but an empty envelope." Someone in the crowd, one of my mother's friends, let out a high, thin wail. Oh my God. The phones were steady. They were all recording. The red dots were like a constellation of accusing eyes. That was the moment the facade cracked, and the foundation underneath gave way. My mother saw the phones. She saw the open-mouthed horror on the faces of her friends. She saw her perfect son, his face now a mask of tears and fury. She saw her perfect party, the product of weeks of planning and thousands of dollars, reduced to a stage for her own humiliation. She lunged at me. It was not a pull, it was an attack. You, she shrieked, her voice no longer melodic, but a raw, tearing sound. You ungrateful, selfish girl. You have ruined us. You have ruined him. Her hands grabbed the fabric of my jacket, her painted nails digging in like claws. She began to shake me, pulling me toward the house, trying to drag me out of the light, out of the sight of the cameras. The fabric of my jacket tore at the shoulder seam. The sound was loud. The pain was minimal, a distant, dull ache. The humiliation. Her humiliation was the real force. It was a physical thing, a storm she was trying to push onto me. I did not scream. I did not fight back. I did not even raise my hands. I became a dead weight, a stone. I let her pull against me, my feet planted on the patio. I was an anchor, and she was the storm breaking against me. Leah, Eli, screamed, his voice a torrent of childish rage. You liar. You stupid liar. I hate you. I saw movement at the edge of the property, beyond the fence. Mrs. Edwards. She was no longer a shadow in her window. She was on her front lawn, illuminated by her own porch light. She had taken a step, then another, halfway to our driveway. She was not just watching, she had a phone in her hand, pressed tight against her ear. Her face was pale, grim, and absolutely certain. My father saw her. He saw the phone. He saw the guests who were now backing away, a silent, horrified herd. He saw the red recording lights. His control, the thin veneer of the suburban CEO, snapped. He let out a roar, a sound that was not human. It was pure, distilled rage. He turned to the glass table. Get out, he bellowed, not at me, but at the world. He swept his arm across the table, sending the cheese platter, the crystal wine glasses, the empty velvet envelope, and the crackers cascading onto the patio in an explosion of glass and food. Get out of my house, all of you. The party is over. The guests did not need to be told twice. They fled. They grabbed their purses, their jackets, abandoning drinks, tripping over chairs in their haste to escape the blast radius. My mother stopped pulling me. She was frozen, her hands still clutching my torn jacket, staring at the destruction. And into that sudden, terrible vortex of chaos, my father's bellows, my brother's sobbing rage, the sound of people running, another sound emerged. It was Mrs. Edwards' voice. It was clear, sharp, and carried across the lawn. She was not whispering, she was screaming into her phone. Yes, 911. Send someone now. The address is 104, Westridge Court. It's the daughter. He's attacking her. The father, he's violent. I saw it. Please, you have to hurry. It is happening again. It is happening again. The final, perfect word, the trigger, the third-party report Mr. Whitaker needed. My father froze, his arms still raised from his destruction. My mother let go of my jacket. They both turned, their faces identical masks of stunned, white-hot fury, and stared at the woman on the lawn. In that single, frozen moment, as the festive lights blinked cheerfully over a scene of domestic carnage, I took a step back. I did not run. I turned my back to them. I walked my steps even and measured. I walked past my father, who was staring at his neighbor, as if she were a ghost. I walked past my mother, who was watching her social life bleed out on the patio stones. I walked past my brother, who was slumped on the deck steps, crying into his hands. I walked off the patio. I stepped onto the cool, dark grass. I walked into the shadows at the side of the house, away from the light. The car service was parked on Maple Street, 2 blocks away. The hotel was waiting. I never looked back. The world had been reduced to a small, curtained-off bay in the Riverton Medical Emergency Department. The chaotic, manicured noise of the party had been replaced by the steady institutional rhythm of the hospital, the beeping of my own heart monitor, the distant muffled overhead pages, the squeak of rubber-soled shoes on linoleum. I was no longer in the shadows of the side yard. The police, responding to Mrs. Edwards' frantic call, had found me walking toward Maple Street. They had seen my torn jacket, the blood matted in my hair, my dazed expression. They had not listened to my father, who stormed out to the driveway, yelling about teenage dramatics. They had looked at my injury, looked at him, and called the ambulance themselves. Now, a doctor I had not met before, a calm woman with tired eyes, was reading a screen just outside my curtain. She pulled it back. "Ms. Alia," she said. "I'm Dr. Chen. We just got the results from your CT scan." I braced myself. "The good news is that there is no bleeding, no fractures," she said, her voice neutral, a recitation of data. "You have a mild concussion and a significant contusion on your left temporal bone, consistent with a fall against a hard object. We'd like to keep you for observation for another hour or 2, but you are medically stable." A nurse came in, a kind woman with a clipboard. "Alia, honey," she said, her voice much warmer than the doctor's. "The doctor will be discharging you soon. We need to know if there is a safe person we can call to come and pick you up, a family member, a friend, someone who can keep an eye on you for the next 24 hours, which we recommend with a concussion." A safe person, I thought of the contacts list on my old phone. My father, who had caused this. My mother, who had shoved me. My brother, who was weeping for a car. "No," I said. My voice was dry, cracking. I cleared my throat. "Not yet. There is no one." The nurse's face softened with a practiced, professional pity. The doctor, however, just nodded, as if this too was a piece of data. She turned to her tablet, dictating her notes. "Patient is alert and oriented. Deny safe contact for discharge. Patient reports the incident was the result of a domestic dispute involving financial coercion, recommending immediate consultation with social work regarding a safe discharge plan and advocacy resources." She looked at me. "I've paged the on-call social worker." The curtain moved again. It was not the social worker. It was a man in a police uniform. His utility belt was heavy with equipment. His name tag read, Officer Rivera. He said, his voice flat, exhausted. "I'm Officer Rivera, Westridge PD. I need to take your statement about the incident at 104, Westridge Court." He pulled out a small notebook. "We responded to a 911 call from a neighbor, a Mrs. Edwards, reporting a violent assault. When we arrived, your father, Richard Fox, stated that you had a syncopal episode, fainted, and hit your head after causing a disturbance. Your mother corroborated that. Your brother, Eli, was distressed. He said you were acting crazy. The narrative. They had already built the narrative. I was the unstable one. I was the problem. Your medical chart," Officer Rivera continued, his eyes glancing at the monitor, "says you have a concussion from an impact. That is a different story from fainting. And Mrs. Edwards' call was very specific. She stated she saw your mother assault you and your father become violent. So I need to know from you what happened. He was not asking to be kind. He was not asking to save me. He was checking boxes on a report. It was not a fainting spell, I said, my voice quiet. My father demanded I sign over a trust fund. I refused. He became destructive. My mother assaulted me. She grabbed me, shook me, and shoved me. I fell and hit my head on the corner of a granite table. Rivera wrote, his pen scratching in the quiet room. Your mother, Diane Fox, you are stating she assaulted you. Yes. And your father, Richard Fox, was destroying property and verbally threatening. Yes. He sighed, a long, weary sound. This is a domestic violence incident. You have the right to file for an emergency protective order. It would be temporary, but it would remove them from the home or remove you safely. Do you wish to file an emergency petition? This was the moment, the precipitating event. Yes, I said, before he could continue. The curtain was pulled back again, this time with force. A woman stood there, her coat still damp from the night air. She was holding a briefcase. It was Angela, the advocate from the Riverton Advocacy Center, the woman I had spoken to on the burner phone. Thank God, she said, her voice a low, efficient rush. She looked past me at Officer Rivera. Are you taking her statement? Is the report filed? We are in the process, Rivera said, bristling slightly at the interruption. Good, Angela said. She turned back to me. Aaliyah, I am Angela. We spoke. Your plan is in place. The hotel voucher is active for 48 hours. Another man appeared behind her. He was older, in a rumpled but expensive-looking suit. He looked exhausted, and his eyes, when they found me, were filled with a fierce, protective anger. Mr. Whitaker, I whispered. Aaliyah, he said, his warm, low voice filling the bay. He nodded to Angela, then to Officer Rivera, and finally to Dr. Chen, who was still watching from the doorway. He was assuming command. I am Hal Whitaker, he announced to the room. I am Miss Fox's legal counsel, and I am the acting trustee for her grandfather's fiduciary. I need two things right now. He looked at Officer Rivera. I need the incident number for this assault. Rivera, suddenly on the defensive, said, I am still writing the report. Then finish it, Whitaker said, his voice cutting. I need that number. He turned to Dr. Chen. Doctor, I have a prepared affidavit here. He pulled a document from his briefcase. It activates the hardship provision of Miss Fox's trust. It requires a medical signature confirming that she has been treated for an injury sustained as a direct result of a domestic conflict and threat to her safety. Your notes regarding financial coercion are precisely the language we need. Dr. Chen read the paper. She looked at me, then at Whitaker. She took a pen from her pocket and signed her name with a crisp, decisive flourish. Thank you, Whitaker said. He took the paper and turned back to Rivera, who was handing him a small, torn slip of paper. And thank you, officer. Whitaker stepped just outside the curtain. He pulled out his own phone. His voice was no longer warm, it was steel. Yes, this is Hal Whitaker. I am invoking Section 12. Paragraph B, the hardship provision, effective immediately. I have the precipitating event, Westridge Police Department Incident Number 7739. And I have the signed medical affidavit from Dr. Chen, at Riverton Medical confirming treatment for assault. Unlock the funds. Transfer them to the independent transition account ending in 8821. Yes, now. And begin immediate proceedings to file the permanent restraining order and the cease and desist for Richard and Diane Fox. I want it filed by 9 a.m. tomorrow. He was silent, listening. I do not care what time it is. Wake up the judge. Get it done. He clicked the phone off and stepped back inside the curtain. The air around him was electric. He looked at me, and the warmth returned to his eyes. It is done, Aliyah. The fund is yours. It is liquid. It is active. And it is in an account that only you and I have access to. They are cut off completely. My burner phone, which had been in my torn jacket pocket, chimed with a text message. Angela had retrieved it and placed it on the tray table. I looked at it. A text from a number I did not recognize. Welcome to Pioneer Credit Union. Your new account is active. Your temporary card is ready for use. Angela stepped forward and placed a thick manila envelope on my lap. Here, she said. The hotel voucher, a temporary unbranded debit card for that account, a new clean burner phone prepaid for 3 months, and a $20 bill for incidentals. She smiled, a small, tired smile. The car service you ordered. It is waiting at the main entrance. The nurse returned with a stack of papers. Okay, Aliyah, the doctor has signed your discharge. I just need you to sign these forms. They are just standard liability and post-concussion care instructions. She handed me the clipboard and a pen. My hand was shaking. I looked at the signature line. Sign it. Don't read it. My father's voice from the hallway. I took a deep breath. I read every single word on the discharge sheet. I read about not driving. I read about watching for dizziness. I read about follow-up care. Then I took the pen. My hand was not shaking. It was steady. I wrote my name, Aliyah Fox. Officer Rivera handed me my copy of the temporary protective order request. Sign the bottom confirming you have received this. I signed. Angela handed me the intake form for the advocacy center. This just confirms you are accepting our services, so we can represent you in court tomorrow. I signed. It was the first time in my life I had signed my name and felt powerful. I was not signing something away. I was not signing in fear. I was signing myself into existence. I was signing my own liberation papers. I changed out of the torn clothes, which Rivera placed carefully into an evidence bag. I pulled on the soft gray sweatpants and sweatshirt Angela had brought me. I put my new phone, my new bank card, and my hotel voucher into the pocket. My old phone, the one my family monitored, lit up on the tray table. The screen glowed. A text message from Eli. Asterisk where's your car, asterisk his car. The car he thought I owed him. I looked at the message. The sheer, staggering, cosmic entitlement. The absolute lack of awareness. He was not asking if I was alive. He was not asking where I was. He was asking where his gift was. I did not reply. I did not block the number. I picked up the old phone. I looked at the glowing screen. The last digital tether to the house on West Ridge Court. I pressed and held the power button. The screen asked me to confirm. I pressed power off. The screen went black. The phone died. I dropped it onto the tray table next to the empty plastic cup. I looked at Whitaker, at Angela, at the nurse. I'm ready, I said, and I walked out of the hospital into the clean, cold night air, and I did not look back. The silence of the hotel room was absolute. It was a sterile, anonymous silence, smelling of industrial cleaner, and stale air conditioning. It was nothing like the silence of my home, which had always been a pressurized, demanding thing. This was a true, empty void. I had slept for 12 hours, a deep, dreamless, concussive sleep. My new phone, the clean one from Angela, buzzed on the nightstand. It was a text from a number I did not recognize. This is Hal Whitaker. The emergency order was granted by the judge at 5 a.m. It is in effect for 72 hours. A sheriff's deputy has served your father. He, your mother, and your brother are legally barred from contacting you or coming within 500 feet of you. The hearing for the permanent order is in 3 days. I will pick you up. It was done. The first wall was built. For the next 3 days, I lived in that anonymous room. Angela, the advocate, visited me twice. You need to be prepared for the hearing, she said, sitting on the opposite bed, a laptop open. They will try to paint you as unstable, hysterical. They will use your ER visit against you. But they were the ones I started. I know, she said gently. But this is not about what is true. This is about what is provable. Your silence was your greatest weapon. Now, our evidence will be. Then she showed me the video. It is all over the Westridge High School social media feeds, she said, her voice clinical. It has leaked. You need to see what the court will see. She hit play. It was shaky, filmed on a phone from across the pool. The quality was terrible, but the audio was perfectly, horrifyingly clear. I saw the string lights. I saw my father's face, pale and furious, as he shook the empty velvet envelope. I heard my own voice, there is no car. There is no money. I heard my mother's shriek. You have ruined us. I heard Eli's voice, the one that broke the internet, you owe me. And I saw the shove. I saw myself stumble back, my head connecting with the granite corner. The phone did not stop recording. It captured the thud. It captured the collective scream. It captured my father bellowing, "Get out." I watched it once, my face numb. Play it again, I said. This was not my shame. This was their exposure. The digital world, the one I had never been a part of, reacted with the swift, merciless judgment of the young. The story was not about me, it was about him, Eli Fox, the popular, handsome golden boy, screaming, "You owe me," at his sister after she refused to buy him a luxury car. The consequences were not my revenge. They were just logical, the natural, unavoidable results of their own actions, exploding in the vacuum my absence had created. First, Eli, the local sports blog, the Westridge County Star-Ledger, picked up the story. The video was embedded. Eli, who was being scouted for a Division II soccer scholarship, was suddenly infamous. His coach, a man my father had often boasted about managing, released a short, curt statement. We are aware of the videos circulating involving Eli Fox. The Westridge Athletics program is built on a foundation of respect, integrity, and character. We are currently reviewing Mr. Fox's status with the team and his eligibility for any athletic recommendations. They did not use the word scholarship. They used the word character. My father had invested everything in Eli's future, but he had forgotten to invest in his integrity. Then my mother, her world was smaller, but infinitely more vicious. It was a world of charity boards, book clubs, and social rankings. For her, the scandal was not the violence, it was the exposure. It was the fact that Mrs. Davies had seen it. It was the fact that her friends had fled her home in terror. I saw it on the West Ridge Philanthropic Society's website. My mother, who had been slated to run the prestigious annual gala, was suddenly gone from the Our Team page. A small note at the bottom of the newsletter read, "We wish Diane Fox all the best as she takes a leave of absence to focus on her health and family." Her health, the ultimate suburban euphemism for a public implosion. She had not been voted out, she had been erased. Then my father, this was the one that mattered. My father's entire identity was built on his professional reputation. He was an executive at a private wealth management firm, a man who handled the futures of Westridge's wealthiest families. His currency was trust. Mr. Whittaker had filed the audio recording of my father's threat. "I will make sure you cannot even get a job washing dishes," as evidence for the restraining order. It was now part of the court filing, and the manage your fund emails he had sent from his work address, the ones I had forwarded to Mr. Whittaker, were now attached to a legal complaint. His company's compliance department, catching wind of a senior executive being served a restraining order for financial coercion, acted instantly. I did not see this on a blog. "Richard has been placed on administrative leave," he said, his voice flat, "pending a full internal investigation. It seems his partners are very interested in the allegation that he attempted to coerce a beneficiary's trust fund. It is misaligned with their corporate values. He had tried to steal my future, and in doing so, he had lit his own on fire." The neighborhood too had shifted. The whispers I had always imagined, the ones judging me, had finally materialized. But they were not judging me. I heard from Mrs. Edwards, who had left a message on Angela's phone for me. "You tell that dear, brave girl," she'd said, "that the whole street is on her side. We all saw Richard's temper for years. We all saw how they treated her. We thought she was just quiet. We did not realize she was trapped." The narrative was no longer about a difficult daughter, it was about an adult woman. They had not been disciplining a rebellious teenager, they had been coercing a grown woman, their own daughter, to steal her inheritance. It was not a family dispute, it was a crime. And while their world was burning down, I was silent. I did not post the video. I did not write a blog. I did not give a statement. I did not return a single one of the 200 missed calls that had come to my old dead phone. My silence, once my chain, was now my shield. My absence was the only consequence. I was busy at the hearing. The judge, a sharp-eyed woman who looked bored by my parents' expensive lawyer, reviewed the evidence, the video, the audio, the medical report, the emails. She listened to my father's lawyer call it a profound and tragic misunderstanding within a loving family. Then she looked at me. "Miss Fox," she said, "do you feel safe?" I met her gaze. "No, Your Honor." The permanent order was granted. 1 year later, the day after, I moved out of the hotel. Mr. Whittaker had found me a small furnished studio apartment above a bookstore on Maple Street. It was on the 3rd floor. It was small, with slanted ceilings and a tiny kitchen. It was perfect. I spent my first day of freedom engaged in the most profound, most liberating acts of my life. I signed a lease. In my name. I went to the utility office and opened an account for electricity. In my name. I bought a new, cheap laptop and a new bicycle, a simple blue cruiser. I paid in cash. I met with Mr. Whittaker. He showed me the statements. My grandfather's fund was not a vast fortune, but it was enough. "It is secure," he said. "It is invested conservatively. This is not lottery money, Aliyah. This is a runway. This is a 1-year, maybe 2-year plan for you to be independent, to heal, to decide what is next." I looked at the numbers. It was the first time a number on a page had ever equaled safety. I started therapy. Angela had given me a name, a woman who specialized in complex trauma, and specifically financial abuse. My first session was stiff. I sat on her couch and listed the facts, as if I were giving a police report. The therapist, a kind woman with gentle eyes, let me finish. Then she said, "I want you to stop talking about them for a moment. I want you to tell me where you feel this in your body." I did not understand. "Right now," she said, "where is the tension?" I focused. "Here," I whispered, my hand moving to my solar plexus. It's a knot right under my ribs. I think it's been there for a long time." I know, she said. That is where we keep the words we are not allowed to say. Our first job is not to talk. Our first job is to breathe. We are going to teach your body that it is allowed to take up space. I began my new life. I woke up. I made coffee. I did my breathing exercises, feeling that ancient, tight knot under my ribs slowly, painfully begin to uncoil. I sat at my window, watching the people on Maple Street, and I wrote in a new journal. I did not write about the party. I wrote about what I might want to do. I wrote about maybe finally applying to that riding program. I rode my new bike. I explored the town. I was invisible. And for the first time, it felt like freedom, not a curse. One afternoon, about a month after the party, I was riding home. I stopped at a red light on Main Street. A car pulled up next to me in the left turn lane. It was a brand new BMW, a dark metallic blue, precisely the model Eli had configured online. It gleamed in the afternoon sun. The man driving it was about my father's age. I looked at it. The perfect, aggressive grille, the sleek, arrogant lines, the emblem that had represented the sum of all my family's desires. I waited. I waited for the surge of anger. I waited for the acid in my throat. I waited for the familiar, cold tightening in my chest. The feeling of being erased, of being less than. Nothing came. My heart did not speed up. My breath did not catch. The knot under my ribs did not tighten. It was just a car, an expensive, impractical piece of metal and glass sitting at a traffic light. It had no power. It held no meaning. It was just a thing. And it had nothing to do with me. The light turned green. The car turned left. I pressed my foot to the pedal. And I rode straight ahead. Home. My new life was not a vacation, it was a campaign. My studio apartment on Maple Street became a war room, and my partners were Mr. Whitaker, Angela, and Dr. M. Reed, the therapist. The restraining order was a shield, but it was temporary. The money in my new account was a resource, but it was not yet legally fortified. My family's silence was not surrender, it was a stunned, furious pause. They were, as Mr. Whitaker put it, re-evaluating their strategy. We had to move faster. The permanent restraining order protects your person, Mr. Whitaker explained over the phone, his voice a steady hum against the quiet of my apartment. Now, we protect your property. We have to assume they will try to contest your grandfather's trust. They will argue that he intended the money for the family, or that you are unstable and being manipulated by me. So what do we do? I asked, looking at the legal pad where I was taking notes. We strike first, he said. I am filing a petition to enforce trust and enjoin interference. The words were heavy, solid. Enjoin interference, a legal command. Stop interfering. This petition, he continued, asks the court to formally recognize you as the sole and independent beneficiary and to permanently bar your parents from any claim, contact, or attempt to manage the funds. And to support it, Alia, we need to attach our evidence. We need to build a case so strong they cannot even afford to fight it. This I knew. This was the work I had already done. I sat at my new laptop. I opened my encrypted email account. One by one, I downloaded the files I had collected in the days before the party. First, the audio file. Exhibit A. I listened to it one last time. My father's voice, low and guttural. Sign it. Don't read it. The sound of his threat. I will make sure you cannot even get a job washing dishes in this town. It was no longer a terrifying memory, it was a piece of evidence. I attached the file. Next, the screenshots. Exhibit B. A gallery of digital receipts. Years of casual extortion. Asterisk Eli needs $500. We'll call it your contribution. Asterisk asterisk. Don't make me ask you again. Asterisk. The texts formed a clear, undeniable pattern of financial control. I attached the files. Finally, the medical report. Exhibit C, Dr. Chen's cool, neutral assessment from Riverton Medical, mild concussion. Patient reports incident stemmed from domestic dispute and financial coercion. It was the independent, third-party validation that tied his threats to physical consequences. I attached the file. I sent the email to Mr. Whitaker. It was the heaviest email I had ever sent. This is perfect, he called back less than an hour later. This is not a family misunderstanding. This is a documented long-term pattern of coercion. Now, we add the teeth. He explained the next step. We are asking the court to apply a no-contest advisory. It means that if your parents choose to challenge this petition and they lose, the court will order them to pay all associated legal fees, yours and their own, directly from their personal assets, not the trust. It was a financial trap. He was using their own greed against them. If they fought for the money and lost, it would cost them a fortune. The next day, Mr. Whitaker sent the official cease and desist letters. The draft I had memorized, the one that had been my shield, was now a sword. It was not sent by email or mail, he hired a process server. I did not see it, but I pictured it. A neutral, unimpressive man knocking on the door of the house on Westridge Court, my mother opening it, her face polite, expectant. The man asking, "Are you Diane Fox? Are you Richard Fox?" And then handing them the thick envelopes. My father realizing it was not a delivery but a service. His signature on the dotted line, a receipt confirming that the warning had been delivered, that the line had been legally drawn. But there was another, more immediate threat. The car, I said to Mr. Whitaker. The party was 3 weeks ago. What if they already bought it? What if they forged my signature on a loan application? They were so sure. An excellent question, he said. We must assume they tried. That afternoon, I made another call. My hand was steady. Yes. Hello. I am calling the compliance department at the West Ridge County DMV. My name is Alia Fox. I am calling because I have reason to believe my family members may have attempted to fraudulently register or finance a vehicle in my name without my consent. The woman on the other end was suddenly very alert. I provided my social security number, which I had memorized, and my date of birth. Yes, Fox, she said, her voice crisp. I see a flag here. An application for a title on a new BMW was submitted 2 weeks ago. It lists you as the primary owner. It was rejected due to an irregular signature. It is being held for review. My blood ran cold. They had actually done it. They had forged my name. That signature is not mine, I said, my voice shaking but firm. I did not authorize that purchase. I am the victim of financial coercion, and there is an active police report. I gave her the incident number. The sound of typing was furious. I understand, Ms. Fox, the woman replied. The application is now permanently voided. I have placed a high-level fraud alert on your name and social security number in our system. Nothing can be titled or registered in your name without you appearing in person with 2 forms of identification. You are secure on our end. I hung up, breathing hard. It was one more wall built. The last step, however, was the one I dreaded most, my belongings, my winter clothes, my journals, my books, my birth certificate, and social security card. You cannot go alone, Angela told me. The restraining order allows for a one-time retrieval of personal property. It is called a civil standby. Officer Rivera, the one who took your report, has agreed to escort you. The next afternoon, I stood on the pristine front walk of the house on West Ridge Court. It was the first time I had seen it in weeks. The lawn was immaculate. The windows were clean. It looked, as it always had, like a perfect, happy home. Officer Rivera knocked. My mother opened the door. She looked smaller. The polished, bright energy was gone. She was wearing grey sweatpants and a shapeless t-shirt. Her hair was unwashed, pulled back in a stringy ponytail. Her face was pale and puffy. She looked at Officer Rivera. "She can come in," she said. Her voice was a dull monotone. Then her eyes moved to me. They were not filled with rage. They were not filled with remorse. They were empty. It was the gaze of a stranger. "Hello," I said, just to break the silence. She just stared at me. Rivera said, his voice gentle. "You are to remain in the kitchen. Ms. Fox will be accompanied by me. She has 20 minutes to retrieve her personal items. You are not to interact with her. Do you understand?" My mother nodded, turned, and walked back to the kitchen, disappearing around the corner. I stepped inside. The house smelled the same, vanilla and floor wax. "Go ahead," Rivera said, following me up the stairs. I walked into my old bedroom. It was exactly as I had left it. My bed was unmade. A coffee cup was still on the nightstand. It was a museum of my old life. I did not pause. I did not reminisce. I was an auditor, an inventory clerk. I pulled my empty duffel bag from the closet. I took my books from the shelf. I took the journals from under the bed. I went to my father's desk. Officer Rivera standing in the doorway, and opened the bottom drawer, the one that always stuck. I retrieved my birth certificate, my social security card, and my passport. I went to my closet. I packed my winter coat, my boots, my sweaters. I did not take the photographs on the wall. I did not take the jewelry my mother had given me for high school graduation. I did not take anything that was a gift, anything that was a chain. I took only what was mine. It took 15 minutes. I zipped the bag. Officer Rivera nodded. I walked down the stairs. My mother was standing in the kitchen doorway, watching me. Her arms were crossed. Her face was a blank, tight mask. We looked at each other for a long, silent moment. She was waiting for me to say something, to cry, to yell, to apologize, to give her anything. I said nothing. I turned my back to her. I walked to the front door, opened it, and stepped out into the clean autumn air. I did not look back. The last pieces were in place. "We are ready for the hearing," Mr. Whitaker said. We had 2 preliminary appearances. The first was to make the restraining orders permanent. The second was to review the evidence for the financial petition. I stood before the judge. She looked at the file. She looked at me. "Ms. Fox," she said, "I have reviewed the exhibits, the audio file, the medical report, and the affidavit from the DMV regarding the fraudulent vehicle application. This is a very clear pattern. Your parents' attorney is arguing that this is a family dispute over a generous gift gone wrong." "It was not a gift, Your Honor," I said, my voice steady. "It was the theft of my grandfather's trust, which he left to me to ensure my safety. The audio file confirms my father's threats. The medical file confirms the violence. The DMV file confirms the fraud. My words were clean, cold. I did not use emotional language. I did not cry. I presented the facts, the timeline, just as Mr. Whitaker had coached me. Angela had provided the final piece. Judges see family disputes all day. She'd said, "We need them to see this for what it is, a specific, calculated crime." She had connected me with Dr. Evelyn Reed, a forensic psychologist and one of the state's leading experts on financial abuse and coercive control. Dr. Reed submitted an expert affidavit. It was not about me, it was about them. It was a clinical, academic breakdown of my family's behavior. She gave the judge the language: financial coercion, isolation, manipulation of resources, leveraging the golden child to control the responsible child. She was not a character witness for me, she was an expert witness on my family's pathology. The judge read Dr. Reed's report. She read my father's panicked, rambling counter-affidavit. She lowered her glasses. "I have seen enough," she said. "We will move to a final, binding hearing on all matters." She consulted her calendar. The court's next available date is Monday, October 10th. A cold jolt went through me. Mr. Whitaker spoke. "Your Honor, that date is significant." The judge looked up. "How so, counsel?" "That is exactly 1 week," Mr. Whitaker said, "to the day after the party where my client was assaulted and this series of events was put into motion." The judge's face was unreadable. "Then it is a fitting date," she said. "We will settle this 1 week from today." The courtroom was cold. It was not the warm, festive glow of the patio lights, it was a bright, sterile, institutional white. The air hummed with the sound of the fluorescent bulbs. We sat at a heavy, scarred wooden table. Mr. Whitaker on my right, Angela, the advocate, just behind me across the aisle. I saw them, my father, my mother, and Eli. It was the first time I had seen them since the civil standby. My father's face was a pale, mottled grey. My mother looked thin, brittle, her eyes fixed on the judge. Eli just stared at his hands. The judge entered. We all stood. We all Saturday. She put on her glasses and looked at the stack of files in front of her. "Good morning," she said, her voice devoid of any warmth. "I have read all the motions. I have reviewed all exhibits and I have read the affidavit from both sides." She looked at my parents' lawyer. "Mr. Breen, counselor, I want to be very clear. I am not interested in emotional appeals. I am not interested in theories about family dynamics. I am interested in facts. I am interested in documents. We are here to rule on the petition to enforce trust and the permanent restraining order." "Understood." Breen, the man with the silver hair, stood up. He clasped his hands, his face a mask of pained sincerity. "Your Honor, this is a deep and profound tragedy, a simple family misunderstanding over a generous birthday gift. It has been twisted and escalated by..." The judge held up one hand. The silence was absolute. "Counselor Breen," she said, her voice cutting through the room like a scalpel. "I just said I am interested in facts. The phrase family misunderstanding is not in this file. The phrase financial coercion is. The word assault is. The phrase fraudulent DMV application is. We are here to determine the safety of Ms. Fox and the legal binding status of her assets. You will address those facts, or you will sit down." Breen's mouth closed. He looked at my father, who was glaring at him. "Thank you," the judge said. "Mr. Whitaker, you may proceed." Mr. Whitaker rose. He did not look at my family. He addressed the judge, as if they were the only two people in the room. "Your Honor, the facts are, as you noted, clear. They are also linear. We have presented Exhibit A, the medical affidavit from Riverton Medical, confirming Ms. Fox was treated for a concussion and injury sustained during the assault on the night of the party." He paused. "We have presented Exhibit B, the video file captured by a third-party witness. Mrs. Edwards. This video corroborates my client's testimony, shows the aggressive behavior of the respondents, and captures the moment of the assault. My mother flinched, a small, sharp movement. We have presented Exhibit C, the original trust document, specifically Section 12, Paragraph B, the hardship provision. It was created by the testator for this exact purpose, to protect his granddaughter from undue influence or threats to her safety. He paused. And we have presented Exhibit D, the audio file in which Mr. Richard Fox explicitly threatens my client with financial and professional ruin if she does not sign over her assets. My father's knuckles were white. Finally, Mr. Whitaker said, "We have submitted the expert affidavit of Dr. Evelyn Reed. Dr. Reed's analysis of the text messages, the emails, and the audio recording confirms a clear multi-year pattern of coercive control, which escalated from financial abuse to physical violence when that control was finally challenged." The judge looked at the expert report. "A very thorough analysis, doctor," she murmured. She looked at my parents. "Mr. and Mrs. Fox," she said, "this is a staggering amount of evidence against you." Breen stood up, his voice sounding thinner now. "Your Honor, my clients, they love their daughter. They were trying to help her. They were trying to build a future for their son. Eli, it was a gift, a family contribution that she misunderstood." The judge cut him off again. Her voice was sharp. "Counselor, I will ask you again. Are you, on behalf of your clients, disputing the evidence? Are you denying the text messages? Are you denying that is Mr. Fox's voice on the audio recording? Are you denying that the signature on the fraudulent DMV application is a forgery? Are you denying that your clients were attempting to gain control of a trust that was not theirs?" Breen was silent. He looked at his notes. He looked at my father, who looked as if he were about to explode. "My clients, we are not disputing the documents, Your Honor. We are disputing the intent, the interpretation," Breen finally stammered. "The court is not a mind reader, Counselor," the judge said, her voice like flint. "The court reads documents, and the documents are crystal clear. You may sit." Breen collapsed into his chair. The judge turned her gaze, which was not unkind, but heavy, to me. "Miss Fox," she said, "this is your petition. Do you wish to speak to it?" I stood. My legs were shaking, but I locked my knees. The room was utterly silent. I could feel my father's hatred, my mother's shame, Eli's confusion, like a physical heat. I did not look at them. I looked at the judge. "I did not hand over the keys," I said, my voice clear and steady, ringing in the quiet room, because that was my future, not a prop. 15 words. I sat down. The judge looked at me for a long moment. Then she looked back at my parents. She picked up her pen. "After reviewing all evidence, testimony, and the expert affidavit, this court finds as follows. First, the petition to enforce trust and enjoin interference is granted. The court hereby confirms Alia Fox as the sole, independent, and current beneficiary of the trust established by her grandfather. The court permanently enjoins Richard Fox, Diane Fox, and Eli Fox from any and all interference, contact, or claims upon this trust, its assets, or its trustees indefinitely. Blow 1. The foundation. Second, the petition for restraining order is granted. The temporary order is now permanent. A 1-year order of protection is affirmed, effective immediately. Any contact, whether direct, indirect, or through a third party, will be considered a violation, and will result in immediate arrest. Third, regarding the no contest advisory, and the motion for legal fees. This court finds that the opposition to this petition, in the face of such overwhelming evidence, was frivolous, vexatious, and wholly without merit. Therefore, all reasonable legal fees and costs incurred by Ms. Fox in the bringing of this petition will be borne by the respondents, Richard and Diane Fox, personally. I heard a sound from my mother, a sharp, choked intake of air. Breen was whispering frantically to my father, who simply stared, his face pale and slack. They had lost the trust, and now they had to pay for the fight. And finally, the judge added, her voice laced with ice as she looked directly at my father. Regarding the fraudulent application to the Department of Motor Vehicles, this court declares any and all applications associated with this case void. Any further attempt by the respondents to transfer value or assets on behalf of Miss Fox will be viewed not as a civil matter, but as criminal fraud, and will be sanctioned to the fullest and most severe extent of the law. She looked at my father, to my mother, to my brother. We are done here. She picked up her gavel. She did not slam it in anger, she brought it down with a single, sharp, decisive thud. Asterisk clack dot asterisk the sound was not loud. It was absolute. It was the sound of a heavy, ancient lid closing on a box. It was not the sound of my burial, it was the sound of the past being locked away, sealed in the dark, where it could never, ever touch me again. All rise. I stood. I watched the judge leave. I did not look at them. I did not look back. I turned, and with Mr. Whittaker and Angela beside me, I walked out of the courtroom. I stepped into the bright, dusty light of the hallway. The air felt different. I could breathe. The knot under my ribs, the one I had carried for 30 years, was gone. Mr. Whittaker put a hand on my shoulder. You did it, Aaliyah. It's over. My new phone, the clean one, vibrated in my jacket pocket. I pulled it out. It was an email, not from Mr. Whittaker. It was an automated alert from Pioneer Credit Union, triggered by the final court order. Subject: Your account security has been updated. Message: Your account has now been placed under dual-layer fiduciary protection. All assets are secure. Asterisk secure dot asterisk I read the word. I looked up at the sunlight streaming through the tall, arched window at the end of the hall. I took a deep, clean breath. A small smile, a very small one, pulled at the corner of my mouth. It was not a smile of triumph. It was not a smile of revenge. It was a smile of release. It was enough. The story has now concluded.